Oh, goodness gracious. I remember the first time I welded. Plug welds are really satisfying. It's like you're filling a bowl of cereal with lactate milk because you're in your 30s and you're lactose intolerant now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're home from California and we have about 3 weeks before we head back out there again to start the road trip to Utah for the rally in the E23. Now, there was still a checklist of things that still had to be done before the trip, so luckily Sutton and the guys were going to get that racked up at some point to just tidy up the stuff that I didn't have the time to do during my week there. So today, in this episode, we are back on the Auto Union 1000 SP. We're finally starting to build stuff. I'm starting to build a frame inside the body, which is what we have to do to not just give the body its own structure, so it's self-contained essentially, since we've cut so much out of it, but also to make body mounts to mount it to the Volkswagen Beetle chassis that's under it. So I just ran out to the steel store, the local steel yard here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Drove the OBS for the first time in what felt like months. So I got a bunch of 1-inch square stock. More 1-inch square stock. I got some 1/4-inch plate that was a drop, but I also got some 1.5 by 3-inch square tubing. So let's get the truck unloaded. We'll get stuff in the shop and I'll show you guys a little bit of what I'm thinking. All right, so I just went to CAD and designed these flat plate body mounts that'll essentially be what actually mount to the Beetle pan itself with a body mount bolt. And what I did was I went to the laser machine first and laser cut it out of cardboard to just test fit stuff. Now this, as I've mentioned before, is the coolest part of having a laser machine and a CNC plasma cutter, is we can pre-pro everything out of cardboard first, make sure it's right, and then we can cut out of steel once, or at least not so many times as you R&D apart. So we've got our 2 forward-most body mounts on the pan. We've got 2 on your beam. That's factory as well, even though this is the EvaResto air beam. But these are the forward-most body mounts on the pan itself. So what I've done is I've made this 4.5-inch by 2-inch plate with a 1/4-inch radius on all corners and a 3/8 hole, and it's offset, as you can see. And my thought process for that is locating it right about there so I can bring a brace down from up here to the left side of that hole, and I've still got enough room here for another piece of 1-inch square if I want to come up or go over or anything like that. Okay, literally all I'm trying to do is cut 2 small little plates out. I've only used the CNC plasma cutter a couple of times. If you remember back like a few months ago, a handful of episodes ago, I had to learn sheet cam and fire control from scratch. The programs I use to run my laser machine, which I have for the last 8 years now, it's like the back of my hand now. I can get stuff designed and cut out with the laser in minutes. But with this, I feel like I'm already like an hour in just remembering and rewatching YouTube videos on how to convert DXF files to G-code through sheet cam, get all your tool paths and tool settings all set up, operation set up. It'll be worth it in the end because these parts are gonna end up on the car, and I'd much rather them be CNC cut than just hand cut and, you know, and have tons of time into that. I've got a sheet of 3/16 on here set up. Off camera, I'm going to watch some more YouTube videos to make sure I'm doing this right. Sooner than later, I'll be just as fast on this machine cutting steel as I am with my laser machine that isn't powerful enough to cut steel. That is more like it. All right, so we got 1 plate cut I don't know what the issue was before. Then it wouldn't cut at all, as you guys can see here. Then I realized that my tip was garbage, so swap the tip out, and then we got a really good cut. So I'm gonna do one more of these things, and we'll mock it up on the pan. We'll figure out what we're gonna do to meet this plate. All right, so first one cut out of cardboard. Now we got two successfully cut out of 3/16 plate. So essentially the idea is, so we've got enough room on both sides, specifically the outside. That's where I've left most of the room. We do have, it's slotted, so we have a little bit of leniency. While I was messing on CNC cutting some parts, Corey got the steering box in, track rods, and the steering extender are supplied by EvaResto with the front beam airbag kit. The box is off of the 59 pan that the original beam came off of. We wanted to get this in place so we knew where we had allowance for space to the beam body mounts, you know, so we know exactly what kind of space this is gonna take up. I had a 90-degree bent piece of 1-inch square that I used as a test piece when I first got my bender, and I cut it down, and I think this is what we're ultimately trying to do here. It's not quite squared up, but that's kind of what we're thinking in the front. We've got this 1-inch square plug welded to the firewall to act as like a cross brace and also something to build off of. These two pieces span up, they're plug welded in as well, and they'll ultimately be a frame that works its way down this lip here, kind of giving this tin, but also the front end some structure. So in here, essentially we'll get a gusset. I'll design something and CNC cut a gusset, which Corey said has to have a spider web in it.
Or brass knuckles.
Yeah, CNC cut some spider webs in there. Leave in the comments if you think we should put CNC spider web in there. It's not happening, but put it in there regardless. The plan is to come forward with this and bend down and make a cross member in the front. Fuel cell will go here. Don't know the dimensions of what fuel cell I'm going to use yet, but now that the steering box is in here, we kind of know the space. All right, so we replicated the bend of, actually the first bend I ever did with the tubing bender. I made a 90-degree bend out of this 1-inch square back when I first got the bender. And so we've got a second one, basically mirror cut. All I have to do is verify how long I need it. So I'll get that in the car next. And, you know, just in case it needs to be a little bit longer or something, I'll get that cut and we'll start gluing some stuff together. Well, guys, I think that's gonna work. All right, well, we got them in place. We tightened up the lower plates. You know, we'll probably end up running a bolt up through so stud doesn't hang down, because depending on where the body lays when the car airs out, the pan might be one of the lowest points of the car. Probably rockers of the body. That's what we're hoping for. But now that we've got the plates bolted in tight, we're going to weld these guys up, and that will be where the front end will sit over the Beetle pan. So this is kind of a big point in the project, like a crucial point of the project, because now we're finally almost static mounting the body over the pan. Every time I set it down, it's like, oh, do we go lower? Do we go up higher? Like, how do we ensure that the body lays out?
Yeah, and the side to side and front to back alignment.
Every single time. Every time. You get in there and you bump it just right, it moves. And yeah. I don't know. Oh, goodness gracious. I hit that. I remember the first time I welded.
It's today.
It is quite today. If I get another piece of slag through the top of my Vans, I always put my boots on, and I didn't this time. I still got the scars to prove it. Leave in the comments how many of you guys weld in Authentics like Corey and I do. Just, I don't know, it's such a nuisance to like either wear boots all day or go put your boots on before you start welding. If I'm like welding in like a weird position, I almost like it because my feet are out of the way. When I'm welding straight up, like standing, I'm like, I'm waiting. No look pass. Plug welds are really satisfying, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah.
It's like you're filling a bowl of cereal or something, I don't know, with lactate milk because you're in your 30s and you're lactose intolerant now. Still works. It is kind of crazy that release lever still works.
Yeah. How can we make that work?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll get this out of here. We'll run some cables all the way up
Yeah, and
to this guy.
a pulley in the front.
That'd be pretty sick.
That's cool.
All right, so we're set back down after welding them up. Oh, and this one. Oh, that one falls right in. This one. How about that? Right in. All right, guys, next day. What we're looking at doing now is cutting a lot of the rotted inner box frame of the body along the sills. So what we've done is we've just put in a new crossbar here for body support. Since we've cut all of this stuff out, we put the one that's out there in here, but it was back here farther. And back here is where we ultimately need to build a cross member that's going to span the width of the car and hold the weight of the car. And we're ultimately going to come off of that cross member with some body mounts. So we've moved our support bar up. We've come up to the B pillar now. And now that that's in, we're going to start cutting all this stuff out. And we're going to take all of this. This is all pretty rotted. And I've mentioned this before. Look at all the speed holes in here. I'm going to show you guys just how crazy they got with the speed holes. Look at this in here too. Insane. Race car. Race car. Race car. Race car. That's all factory auto union, 1960. All right, so we're gonna get cutting. There's been a handful of episodes of cutting on this car, so we're not gonna bore you guys to death with everything. Look at this stuff. That's not good for anyone. All right, so we got the top of the old frame rails cut out. We're gonna keep going, but before we do, you can probably see already there's quite a bit of the car in there. Literally the car. It's crazy to think that that was a 1960 Auto Union 1000 SP. That's just one side.
Yeah.
All right, next day, working on the computer here. I cut so many poster board and cardboard shapes to make these side plates for the rear cross member in the body of the SP. Now, once I finally got one out of poster board, folded it a little bit and got our final shape, went the cardboard, which was fitting in the car better and a little bit thicker because I think we're going to use 1/4-inch steel. This notch here is just for the crossbar we have in there now, holding the body together. So unfortunately, we can't cut that out and then put this in because we don't want to compromise the structural integrity or lack thereof of the body. So that bar is going to stay. So this plate will always have a notch in it, but that's fine. What I've done now is, since there's not a lot to weld to around the outside, we've cut a bunch of holes. Now, every single one of these holes has been strategic. So I basically took the other piece of the car and measured a grid layout where I'd be able to cut holes in the plate with the CNC plasma cutter to ultimately use as plug weld holes to hold the plate on, because to this plate we're gonna have our cross member. Our cross member is gonna span across this. All right, guys, a few days later, been plugging away at this thing. Stuff that really wasn't worth filming because we've been doing a ton of cutting in the body. Just prep cutting, cutting away of rust and fixing some rust in order to strengthen it, to then weld mounts to. I decided to go with this 2x2 inch 1/8 inch wall, 11 gauge box, like actual square tubing. The frame rails that we cut out of the body were about 50 mil by 50 mil, which is about 2 inch anyway. So we're ultimately replacing it with thicker material in the same size. We've cleaned all of the end of the rockers out. And as you can see, hidden behind the frame rails were more speed holes. It's pretty crazy. For a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke front-wheel drive 1960 German car. We got 2 of our new 2 inch by 2 inch frame rails cut to length and tack welded into the car. And this, let me tell you, looks a whole lot better than what was there before it. So now that we got these in, we can accurately final design our plates. Again, this bar is gonna go. This is just helping us keep the car together before we get our main cross member in. This is where that plate's gonna sit once we plasma cut it out of 1/4 inch steel. And then we're gonna plug weld all of these holes to keep this as strong as possible and put our cross member all the way across to the other side. All right, so as you guys can see, we have our part converted to G-code, still learning sheet cam. As always, we are using our PrimeWeld Cut 60, which is the heartbeat of this CNC machine. Piercing that 1/4 inch steel like it's nothing.
So good.
Imagine how long it would take to drill all those.
2 days.
Dude. How sick. That's 1/4 inch steel. That would have taken so long to cut by hand. This is heavy. The magnet won't. Oh, wow. Man, dude.
That's nice.
Look at the buttery cut.
So good.
You have a little bit of a bevel? Not really.
Not really.
This is the most intricate cut we've put this table through yet. And I mean, 1/4 inch thick plate. First serious cut with this thing. This is nuts. I feel like we're building now.
Oh, yeah.
We're building now.
Oh yeah, we're custom
We're using
now.
machines. So what I've done is I've cleaned it up, got it ready to put in the car, and I actually painted the inside because I'm about to tack weld it in the car, but it might just stay there. We might not cut these tack welds as long as everything fits up well. I know, I need to invest in some Steelit, some weldable primer. It's expensive. I don't usually stock that stuff here. But now that we're full throttle on fabrication on the 1000 SP, I'll probably invest in a few cans because we're gonna use it a lot. The other side's in now. I've tack welded the driver's side in. So this is a 1.5 by 3, 11 gauge. This is almost 1/8 wall. So it's pretty stout. We're gonna set it on end. All right, so we test fit a few times. It was long. I cut it long so we could always just trim down. So we got it to where it hammered in nice and snug, and we've got it leveled out now, spanning the plates. But this actually lays perfect because we've got about 1/8 of an inch of plate on top so we can weld all the way around it. After we tack weld it well, we can cut this guy out. And we're on to body mounts.
Yeah, body mounts here on the back.
Yep. So if you guys haven't seen yet. These are the factory Beetle body mounts on both sides. That's what we're going to build off to. All right, so we have the cross member welded in, at least enough to where it's not going to move, and we can work on making body mounts now. And that's what I'll probably go to the laser and start cutting some cardboard out to just pre-pro a bunch of stuff. But we're going to set it down. We kind of already did, but we're going to set it down to see if our front mounts are enough to hold the front of the body up. We're more than certain that the rear cross member we just welded in can just sit on top of the back of the pan tunnel. By the time we finish this thing, we're going to gusset that front. So all you guys that are seeing the front like arms, that's going to be heavily gusseted and tied into the frame rails. So we're not done there, but we might be done enough to where the body can support its own weight. All right, so we're touching there. See, the bolts just fall into place.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that a lot. In the rear here, we're just about on the pan. We're officially off the lift arms. Yeah, we're loose.
Yep.
Front and rear lift arms are loose. Whoop. We got a long way to go, but that is a huge win. Body sitting on the pan, that's sick. Our cross member to body mount hole is identical side to side. We got 7/8 of an inch. That's another big win because I can make symmetrical body mounts on either side. So our spacing's the same. Well, next step, we'll make some pre-pro cardboard laser cut body mounts, and then we'll go to the CNC table, cut it out of steel, and we'll get the rear body mounts made. Super stoked on this. Yep. All right, so I got the plate bolted in and tightened, so that won't go anywhere. So what I'll do now is I'll take the gussets and put them in place, tack weld them, and then we'll ultimately put the body up so we can finish weld them in. Right out of wire.
Dang.
All right, guys, next day, we're back. Ran out of wire in the welder just as we were finishing up the rear body mounts. All right, guys, well, I plug welded most of the holes of the plates. Got the frame rail finish welded all the way around. You know, I'm gonna smooth all the plug welds out. We're gonna make this all nice and smooth again. Well, guys, that is the Auto Union 1000 SP body. Finally made it to the Volkswagen Beetle pan underneath it for the very first time. This is a very huge and vital step in this project to get this thing supported over the pan. So as you can see, going to the Type 3 motor was the absolute move. The body's set down over the pan where we need it, and we have all the room in the world. These temporary bars to just hold the back half of the body as we were cutting it out are below the trunk lid, which is now the hood, and the motor is below that. So we have more than enough room with the motor, with carburetors, and the hood on with the body down over the pan as far as we need it. It's been a long week trying to figure out design and finally execute it. But to use my laser machine to pre-pro parts out of cardboard until we got our file just right, move it across the shop to the CNC plasma table, and cut parts with a computer essentially is just unreal to me. So I am super grateful to have that machine here in the shop. Well, again, that's it, guys. I'm gonna end the video there. A huge step forward on this project. Stay tuned for more 1000 SP content. We're gonna keep this momentum alive. I wanna take this car to the Complex Union Show in New Brunswick, Canada at the end of July. In whatever state it may be in, but it needs to be in a state good enough to take up there. So I'm gonna put that out into the ether so I can be accountable and hopefully keep the fire lit under me on this car to get it done enough to where it can roll and air down at minimum. Thank you guys so much for all of your support and for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.
Oh, no.